The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen,
you're now about to witness the truth.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. It is Wednesday, June 21st, the first day of summer, 2017. Thanks so much for joining us. I am joined in studio today by Professor Matt Sinkowitz, Professor of Media Studies at Boston College. Thanks for joining me. How's it going?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me.
Let's try it again. Try it one more time. How's it going?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me.
Great for thanks for joining us. We'll talk about all the news and all the headlines. You can join in and weigh in on any part of the conversation. 857-600-0518. We could take live callers now. So make sure you call in or leave your comments in the comment section below on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. As always, I'd like to thank our patrons for making the show possible. If you want to become a part of the inner circle and get our morning analysis where we hit it, sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's 15 minutes, but we get one topic and we really go into it early in the morning. You can get access to that by going to patreon.com/the BPD show. Let's talk about some things happening in the news. Last night, Jon Ossoff lost to Karen Handel by 4 points, about 4 points. Yeah. And it only cost the Democratic Party $23 million to lose. Now, a lot of people are saying that we shouldn't be, Sunday morning or Monday morning quarterbacking, sideline, whatever, all the different sayings. But even if he had won, that's not a model that's replicable that we can replicate across the country, especially in light of what kind of money the Democrats are raising now. Let's start with Professor Tillman. What's your take on the race and the record-setting cost of the race?
Well, the money is just incredible, right? This is just overwhelming. You make a nice point, right? Even if this does go through, right? This is not a model that's going to be sustainable moving forward. It's like you're having trouble with your marriage, so you go on an expensive vacation, right? Even
as a solution,
even if that goes well, right? Then you got to spill it forward. And you think, oh, maybe that'll kickstart it, but then you go and you get divorced before you come home, or whatever the metaphor is. It's not good, right? I mean,
right.
And that's kind of obvious. I think that the major lesson, and it has a lot to do with media narrative, is that there was.
I have my hang on. Let me do something real quick. Finish that thought.
Yeah. So the thought is simply there was a desire, and there's been a desire since Trump showed up on the scene, right, to say Trump changes everything. Right. And there's a lot of media business that is surrounded that surrounds the idea that everything is different now, everything has changed. One of the lessons from last night to me was, well, everything hasn't changed. Right. Republicans still vote Republican. Right. The Democratic Party still does not bring in a number of voters that maybe they could bring in. Mm-hmm. Everything hasn't changed, right? Which is often the case, but often not the way that a sort of media narrative wants to put it.
Right, and it's also things have not changed in the sense that we try to nationalize local races. And I forgot the name of the politician / author who said all politics are local. Right. And so they tried to run against Donald Trump, which I get. It makes sense.
Yeah, and that's doable.
Right. That's doable. But then you also have to address the local, the community. You have to be inserted into the community at a certain level. So it hasn't changed. Back to your point, it hasn't changed in the sense that running against Trump is enough. Right. Running against Trump got them. Tom Price won the district by 20 points. Right. Running against Trump got them close. Right, he shaved off a lot of that, but it wasn't enough.
Running against Trump can be localized, right? Because you can, point to healthcare and say.
But Ossoff didn't want to do that.
But he didn't do that. I understand.
Right.
So running against Trump does not mean not running locally, but he seemed to kind of choose not to, right? You go to your community and you say,
that's a good point.
What do you guys need, right? And my guess is if you put in front of them the conditions of the healthcare bill, they're not going to like it probably. I'm guessing that. Fundraising against Trump, I think that's a bigger problem. Right. So a lot of people are going to vote in their local, in their national local race, right, for their representative in order to stop a president or in order to bolster a president. But to ask the rest of the country to come in and pour all of its energy, all of its emotion, all of its sort of energy, right, into this localized race, that's not long term.
Right.
You can't continue it. And B, I mean, it is ultimately a local race.
Yeah.
Right. And money coming in from all over is nice for a minute, but is not any kind of solution.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a lot of things about this race that we're going to talk about because it's the morning after. Everyone is trying to pretend as though they're looking at it through a sober lens, but they're not. They're still hungover from last night. So we'll talk about it. I want to take this caller first. Caller, you're live on the air. What is your name, comment, and or question?
Hey, Ben, this is Brianna Guy.
Hi, Brianna. What's on your mind?
Not much. I guess the main question everyone's asking, what is the message of the Democratic Party? Because we still don't have a message. We still don't know what they stand for, even after 2016, losing to Donald Trump, losing the House, losing the Senate, losing at least about 1,000-something seats on the local level.
Right.
And even you look at the Republicans, despite how nasty and crude they have a message.
Yeah.
The message is we're going to screw over the poor, and we're going to give our billionaire friends a lot of money. And we're going to ban all Muslims, and we're going to deport as many immigrants as we can.
Brianna, as hyperbolic as it sounds, you're not too far off, right? Thanks for the call, and because I want to jump in there. That's a good point. Like what we saw that he also ran against Trump, but in terms of what he actually stood for, can anyone tell us what he actually stood for versus how much he stood against with Trump?
Well, and within the Democratic Party, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he made clear that he was standing not quite against Nancy Pelosi, but he was very tepid in his relationship to her. I believe he was against the $15 minimum wage. Is that correct?
I gotta
maybe
look
he was
that
just
one up.
tepid on it, but in any case, he was against Trump, but he was also against some sort of key elements of fairly mainstream, if progressive-leaning aspects of the Democratic Party.
And I think that's the message now, right?
Yeah.
I think the message and what I've seen from some key voices in the Democratic Party has been that we need to go even further and be even more moderate. And we have to win. One guy said that we have to win those lean Republican voters who are upset with Trump. And this is where, I discussed on the morning analysis this morning, they're not going to win that voter, right? It's a lot more than. Here's the thing. If you're talking about being moderate enough for conservatives, then you have to talk about it in two distinct brackets. It has to be discussed in terms of economic conservatism, and it has to be discussed in terms of social conservatism. Because you, as a Democrat, may and they have over the last 40 years, you may lean moderate or to the right enough to actually pacify a Republican on tax cuts. You might can meet them somewhere further to the right, but you're not, as a Democrat, going to go far enough to the right on social issues to ever pacify that group of Republicans. You're not, and you shouldn't want to.
Right, not in that part of the country, at least. I mean, this is something that probably can be successful in pockets, can be successful maybe in the Northeast. It used to be successful in the Midwest, right? It used to be successful in the Pennsylvania to Wisconsin border. Maybe that's changed too. Maybe it hasn't. I don't know. But in Georgia, that seems like a tough sell, right? It seems sort of obvious that the place of religion in the local society is significant and going to be tough to overcome.
Yeah.
It kind of comes down to the point that the caller made was really spot on, to the extent that Democrats historically have not had a clear sort of ideological message, right? The coalition approach to building an electorate has been the Democrats' way of going about things.
Right.
And I mean, it might be that this sort of, it goes back to Bill Clinton stuff we've been talking about for years now. The idea that the middle is where the action is where you build that coalition to, is sort of still taken as common sense. And it looks like it's nonsense, right?
Exactly. That was going to be my next point, because they keep billing it as the only way to go, and so far centrism has been the only way to lose. Like they have one president to their count. Well, I guess you could count. Yeah, you can count Obama. So we'll give them two presidents, right?
Sure.
But Hillary Clinton has lost, and she's lost to Donald Trump. Like, I can't even get my mind around that at this point. And then you see it on the localized elections. Ossoff lost, and he did his best to be the type of centrist Democrat that a lean Republican who's upset with Trump would go for. He did everything he could, and he still lost. I think the problem is that they're more interested in going after a group of people, a group of Republicans who will never be interested in them, than they are actually formulating a true ideological message and even addressing any of the issues of the left.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not so sure that they want to so much as the professional political class doesn't feel like they know how to. Right, sort of, Maslow's hammer, right? If all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? That the tools that they have are geared towards likely voters, towards a certain economic class of voters. That is, when you sort of are trained in communication outreach in the political world, right? There's people who you know how to reach. This is how you do it. You use mail for this type. You knock on these doors. You don't knock on these doors, right? The idea of finding vast new groups of people who don't vote, right? The tools are probably just much less clear. And when you sit down with a candidate and you make your pitch, you've got one person saying, look, there are all these centrists and I know how to get them, right? It worked in this election, it worked in this election, it worked in this election, we'll get them. And the other person comes in and says, yeah, things are kind of crazy now. I think this is going to work to bring out younger people, to bring out more progressive people. You might not have just the track record to prove it, right? It might be something that's not been done very much.
Right.
And politicians or people who want to be politicians are risk averse, right? The number one thing also probably he wanted to win. He didn't want to embarrass himself, right? That's like a primary goal. Yeah. You'll never be less likely to embarrass yourself by using the traditional tools of winning an election, even if it's not the optimal strategy to win.
So, I mean, we got to win Congress.
Yeah, which is still possible, by the way.
We have
it's
to
not
stop.
Over.
We have to stop Donald Trump. Right, we have to freeze their inability, and everything that you said is 100% spot on. But we can't keep living off of moral victories.
No, certainly.
Right, especially not when those moral victories mean an actual victory for people who Karen Handel, who doesn't even want a livable wage.
It's silly to say it.
She literally said it and still won because. You don't want to
vote Republican. That's part of why she won, right?
Say that again.
Because Republicans vote Republican.
Yeah. And listen, this is the part to go back to what I was saying about the religiosity. You can't neglect that. There are two issues. People in the South, I don't care how much money they make, if they're billionaires, everybody in the South goes to church. Sure. That is I don't care if they're black, white, it is a Southern, that's where they go. So people were like, oh, social issues didn't matter to this moderate class of Republicans. Where are you on Sunday morning? We're not in the Northeast where we're at brunch on Sunday morning. Right. They're in the South where they are at some Southern Baptist church. And I set it up that way because they don't even have to discuss social issues in this campaign. No. The Republicans who support or the Republican Party in the South are evangelical voters. They are people, if they're not evangelical, they're Episcopalian, they're Catholic, they are religious, and they are not going to trade over from the Republican Party to the Democratic Party for two main reasons: LGBTQ rights and a woman's right to choose. So even if you can appeal to them economically, you cannot appeal to the Republican Party in the South as a Democrat who's going to support pro-life and pro-choice and LGBTQ rights. It's a non-starter.
Yeah, well, and if you're worried about that, Ossoff plays right into it, right? This secular Jewish guy, sort of associated with all kinds of social liberalism. Even, not progressivism necessarily, but yeah, I mean. I won't speak for the Southern electorate. I think you've got a lot more experience.
Listen, they're in church. It's Wednesday night. They're getting ready to go to Bible study at 7 o'clock. Well, it's already 8 o'clock. So they're coming out and they're going home. But this is where they are. This is what they do.
And it creates social pressures. I mean, that's whenever people meet in a space, right? If the dominant force there, I'm guessing the religious leaders tend to lean to the right. Listen, the most. Let me tell you,
I don't know why they thought they were going to win Republicans, because of just the simple fact that, like you said, Republicans vote Republicans. But particularly in the South, to get a Republican who is serious about being pro-life, who is serious about protecting traditional marriage, you actually believe you're going to get a majority or even a plurality, enough of those to win as a Democrat, only if you're willing to betray those issues. And if you are, then why are you even a Democrat?
I mean, what you're saying makes perfect sense, yet 2 days ago, I wasn't convinced this was going to go bad. But the reason being that all of that makes perfect sense to me. I just thought $23 million in this incrable outreach could change. Well, at least, maybe not change it permanently, but like could overcome it, right? Could bring you high enough up the mountain that they'll vote for the guy who definitely doesn't go to church on Sunday. I guess not. I mean, it's tremendous. I've mentioned this before to you off air, but one of the studies that I saw of it said that over half of voters said they had met personally with an Ossoff campaign person, like door knocking. 50%.
Wow.
Which is, that 10-20% would be amazing, right? They threw everything. They threw not just money, but people, and every brain that was available was on that one case. And
finish that thought.
No, and I was just gonna. I suspect that is what can get you to 4% loss.
I was reading in theroot.com that they spent all this money, but they didn't spend it in it spent $100,000 for all of the black community in that district. So they threw everything they could into certain categories, and the title
of only 100,000 of it
went to the black community as a combined.
I can't do math, but that's one very small fraction.
Yeah,
really?
that's a little bit. That's not much.
And what was the voter turnout in that?
I didn't get the numbers for the voter turnout, but the article title was what was the title? We knew that white boy wasn't going to win. Something to that effect. Yeah. And they were like, they knew because because he didn't have a connection in the community. And that's the thing about local races. Like, people are going to go for a face and a name that they recognize. That's like in any race. But then also a person that they can identify with, someone that they feel is from their community. And Ossoff had that to overcome as well.
He did. And it was I don't know exactly how he came out as the candidate. I'm not going to pretend that I do. I do think there could be some very superficial thinking in that, we need more young people to vote. Let's put the guy who looks like he's 13, he's getting ready for his bar mitzvah, and put him up there. And, that doesn't say that he's not mature and he's not able to do it, but there is this sort of very superficial, he looked the part of a guy who would get young votes. Right, and that might have been part of the story. I'm not saying, I don't know where it was, but it wasn't, as you say, it wasn't somebody who was steeped in that community, the crucial parts of the community.
Right. Especially if you're going to go with a traditional route. Yes, right. If you're going to go with standard politics, then you better have standard politics relationships. You better, right? Now, if you want to come as an outsider, this is what Barack Obama was able to do in 2008. He came as an outsider. He didn't have those relationships that would separate them away from Hillary Clinton to him. So what did he do? He just ran right through all of them and built his own coalition. Ossoff wanted to run, and he ran a traditional campaign, but he did not have those relationships in that district such that he could benefit from running. He needed to run as a populist, as an outsider, as a revolutionary.
Someone did. He didn't need to, right? He's
not somebody, right? Because if he could switch it on and off that easily, we definitely
I believe he's legit in so far as he seemed to be a pretty moderate guy. Kind of wooden, fairly well spoken. I believe that we saw a pretty good version of him. In all honesty, he'll get older, and maybe he'll improve.
Oh, it's going to be so boring. This is the last thing I'll say about it. Was change. Ossoff is going to be so depressed when he runs in 2 years and nobody's throwing any money.
Nobody's going to care at all.
No national media coverage. He's going to feel like, because this is a bullshit election in real life, right? Most races are miserable, lonely experiences, and that you're doing everything you can to get every dime. You don't get national coverage in a district.
It's going to be like going from American Idol to like the VH1 house or whatever.
Even worse,
right? Maybe even less.
It's going from American Idol down to the local talent show. That's what it's coming to be.
Right.
I don't wish him ill towards him, but like sometimes the lights and the glamour and everything really will fool you. And this is his first race too.
Yeah, well, that said, you know, he was always listed as filmmaker, and his CV is somewhat mild. He will be in a better position when he goes into a room and looks for money now.
He'll be okay.
Oh,
but
no,
he's not. I mean, we're not going to worry, but he's probably got some things lined up. We're not going to worry.
He might have
about
got a lot of what he wanted out of it. Not that I think
he got enough Twitter.
Win,
he got enough Twitter followers out of it to convert it into a business. So anyway, let's shift gears. If you want to weigh in on the discussion, 857-600-0518. Let's talk about Jared Kushner going to the Middle East. So LA Times had a piece on it. They're saying that he shuttled between Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Jerusalem and Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. And so he's going, I guess, as would an emissary be over the top? He's going as this great representative of hope to bring peace in the Middle East on behalf of Donald Trump.
What you're saying, Ben, is that our president did a thorough national search. Looking for the most qualified person to go over the Middle East and negotiate peace, and it just turned out to happen to be his
happened to be his son.
How it shook out, man. I mean, it's unlikely, but here it is.
So
look at him.
But Jared Kushner did have Benjamin Netanyahu stay in his bedroom one time. No, he did. It's a true story.
I don't want to ask what other people are qualified as a result of that credential. But,
we won't discuss that. But so what's like, you know, snark aside?
It's going to be a lot of snark here.
No, give it all. Then what's your take?
For one, I feel 36-year-old modern Orthodox Jewish Americans don't get a lot of screen time. There's Jared Kushner and there's me here on the Benjamin Dixon Show. And I'm not thrilled with the representation.
You're upset because you're here with me,
and he's solving the world's problems. So that's the first thing. I know that could be the last thing too. So I mean, it is on the one hand a fundamental absurdity to essentially pick a random person.
Yeah.
Which is basically what it is. He randomly happened to marry Ivanka Trump. Right? Yeah. That is his qualification. He's a sort of mediocre performer at every other stage of life. No accomplishments that you wouldn't expect for somebody born into his position.
Right.
It's an absurdity. Jason Greenblatt, who's also there with him, he's a little more accomplished as a person, doesn't have any background knowledge in the issues of the Middle East, particularly Israel-Palestine. You add on top of that if you are a Jewish American, you've got to really work to show that you are interested in justice and interested in the Palestinian people living lives the way they should, right? There's going to be a strike against you in the mindset, and that's not entirely unfair, right? People tend to be biased towards their families, right?
Yeah.
That's just the reality.
Yeah. It's
not anti-Jewish, right? It's no different from any other group, right? So they haven't done that. Right, they have not spent the time learning the culture that they are dealing with, learning the ins and outs of it. So it's a little bit ridiculous, right? That's just the first thing. The next thing is to say that people who have been versed in this, have studied everything, they haven't gotten anywhere either. And there is sort of this like roll the dice, wild card, pick from the deck kind of thing going on, where you think like maybe just doing the most random, strange thing. It can't get worse is the theory. I think that's a mistake. It can get worse. So there's that. I think that one sort of important thing to note is that as the peace process, as it's sort of called fallaciously, between Israel and Palestine has gone on, there is a danger to going down a path and not seeing it through. And this is the thing that scares me most in regards to Trump. He's jumping into this thing. He says he wants to pressure Netanyahu. I think in general that would be great. But the history has shown that if you start a peace process, it's surgery.
Yeah.
Right? You got to cut things open first, right? This is a place where if you're talking about a two-state solution, things are intertwined in really complicated ways. People have very different understandings of the world they're in. The Oslo process did this. It sliced it open, right? They weren't able to sew it back, and it got a whole lot worse.
Right.
So it's not just like, give it a shot, see what happens. Right, the worst thing that can happen is you
make
go
it
there,
worse.
you make it, you make some steps, right? But then you actually didn't know what the hell you were talking about from the start, and you make it worse. And as bad as it is, and it is really bad. I mean, look at the electricity situation in Gaza right now. It's really bad. It can get worse, right? There can just be a full-out war, right? It can get worse. Anyway, that went from sort of snark to maybe a little self-righteous, but I appreciate the opportunity, man.
And no problem, man. I don't think I have anything else to say about that, man. You got any last thoughts on that?
Oh, gosh. I mean, I am somebody who wants to see the United States put legitimate pressure on Israel to move towards a two-state solution, but I am afraid to advocate for that in the context of a president who I don't think can see it through and doesn't understand the issues. Like it's hard. I've been, in speaking to people about this issue, which is very close. I do a lot of work around it. To say I'm not sure I want to see any moves because I don't see them being followed through. I don't see them going forward.
I don't think that's unreasonable, though. If you think about what you're saying that Trump has the potential of actually making the situation worse. And so not having him involved might be the better solution right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best thing that he could do, honestly,
stay out of it.
Well, it would be to stay out of anything concrete and to create such sort of confusion amongst the Israelis that they feel less confident in doing things like pushing new settlements. Right? So, like, if I could draw up the best case scenario that I can envision, I mean, the best case scenario is somehow Jared Kushner is a genius and barring that, the best thing that I could see, right now Israel is sort of in love with Trump, but he's got especially the Israeli right, but he's got this like weird thing where he flips back and forth on stuff all the time. Yeah. Right. If he does that enough, maybe the Israeli right gets nervous and doesn't feel like it can just push ahead. I mean, they felt like Obama was an enemy, at least the Israeli right did, but that they could push him around. Right now, they think that Trump is a friend, but they don't necessarily think they can push him around, not because they respect him and his smarts, but that he's just a sort of a bull in a china shop, right? He could just knock everything over. Yeah. Anyway, so some chaos. It's not that I think that's good. It's not that I don't want to see concrete steps towards a viable Palestinian state. I just don't think he can do that. I think the best that he could do is maybe put some confusion into the bad path things have been going with the Israeli government.
857-600-0518 if you want to weigh in on the discussion. Anything that we've talked about so far, you can leave us a comment in the comment section. Let's talk about what happened today with in Saudi Arabia. This might be another one where I think you might be more passionate about this. So today,
it relates in some ways.
King Solomon made a major change and placed his 31-year-old son next in line to be the king, the crown prince. Prince Mohammed bin Solomon, he's only 31. He was previously second in line for the throne, next behind his uncle.
Yeah, his much older uncle.
So it makes sense if you think of it from a autocrat perspective. Right. A dictator wants his son to take over after him. But how does it make sense in the I guess the king can do whatever he wants to do.
That's but
he really changed the paradigm. Like, is this, has this been done before?
Not to my knowledge. Generally, it's been a series of very old men in charge of both the family and the kingdom. Right? It's a pretty remarkable thing. It's a family and it's a kingdom. How does it make sense? I mean, I think in some ways that you have to go back to the Arab uprisings and note that Middle Eastern dictators are shaking a little bit, right? And they see what has happened around them, right? You see Tunisia, you see Syria, you see Libya, and so on. And there's a sense that doing it the same way over and over again creates a problem.
Right.
And this guy, bin Salman, does have a pretty good track record domestically in terms of doing stuff in Saudi Arabia, pushing towards reforms. Now, they're all relative reforms, right? None of them are going to make you happy sitting in Boston or Norway, right? But in terms of liberalizing the economy to a certain extent, in terms of trying to get more people. I mean, one of the real issues in Saudi Arabia is that people have tended to live off of subsidies. And he's made an effort to try to push them towards work. He's tried to diversify the economy. He at least sort of signals that some of the gender issues can be moved in a better direction.
But again, this is comparatively
It's
speaking.
all comparatively, right? And it's all comparatively in the context of the fact that the Wahhabi the theological strand of the society is almost equal to the prince. right? Almost equal to the king, almost equal to the royal family, right? That this is that they need to be balanced, right?
Right.
And so, but he is signaling things that you don't see otherwise. At the same time, before you get too excited about him as somebody who might push things in a good direction, he's also super hawkish, super sectarian, super militaristic. He has been instrumental. He's been sort of the head of the war in Yemen, and that has been a very ugly war with many civilians, Shia civilians being killed, and he really does not like Iran.
That's what I was. Yeah,
and that's a big thing, right?
Right.
And so you've got who doesn't like Iran, right? The Israelis don't like Iran. Donald Trump doesn't like Iran. This guy who we just made a big arms deal with doesn't like Iran. If you're going to point towards awful scenario of war, to me it
goes through him.
Goes through him. That's
so the irony of it is that where he might, and I use this word very loosely and in the context of Saudi Arabia, where he might be progressive on their domestic issues. He's extremely hawkish with regard to Iran, with regard to the civil war in Yemen. And the problem with this is that this is a huge generational shift.
Yeah.
Right. You're going from an elderly king who will may be here tomorrow, may not.
They tend to not. They don't hit the stairmaster very much. Those kings. So yeah.
All the way down to now at 31-year-olds. So that if he's next in line, he could be the king through the rest of our lives.
He eats his vegetables. Yeah. I mean, he could be there. I mean, it could be decades and decades. I mean, who knows? I mean, people, things will change over time, but there is a tremendous anti-Iranian, anti-Shia coalition forming
on the international stage. Yeah.
And then we've got, so that's like the pile of tinder, right? And then you've got Syria, which has every possibility of being the spark.
Yeah.
Right? It already, and I don't mean to downplay the incredible conflagration that is Syria itself.
Right.
But it could be the thing that expands that. I'm not a historian. I don't really know how to make a World War I comparison, but there is a sort of thing about alliances that are sort of strange and lining up that to me is at least a bit unnerving. Yeah.
Now you have me thinking about the different alliances and how easily and unavoidably we got into World War I. And with decisions like this, his hawkishness towards Iran, it in a scary way, really does set the stage that you're outlining there, right? It in an unnerving way, because there's a zeal that he brings to it, and that his youthfulness brings to it that actually is more troubling than the status quo right now.
I think that's right, and I think that you sort of put it as a paradox that he wanted to reform things at home, but was still pretty sort of very sectarian. But in some ways, these sort of one covers for the other. Right, so he has been pretty aggressive, saying it, giving hints at least that women should be able to drive, for example, and things like this. Right, they are going. Those statements cost you some cred with the theocracy, with the old school crowd, right? But anti-Shiaism might earn you some back.
Okay.
Right, it might sort of establish saying, okay, so he's a little bit liberal in this, but he knows, he knows where real Islam is.
Right.
And we're putting words in his mouth, right? I mean, we don't, I don't know. But they go together in a funny way, right? And Iran has played that role for many places, right? For Sunni regimes. It's if they can't point to Israel, right, they'll point to Iran to sort of get off of something domestically that they don't like. And
what do you see as a satisfactory, not satisfactory to us? What's his end game in Yemen? What does that look like? Because as he's the defense minister. He's been running that campaign in Yemen. He wants a victory. But considering the type of weapons that we sold them, and considering the way they've engaged in this battle so far, victory is a humanitarian crisis in many regards.
The ongoing processes. I suspect he wants to put the genie back in the bottle, right? That this is so two things. One, he wants to effectively turn the narrative to the idea internationally that this is a proxy war. That the Iranians have put the Houthi, I might be saying that not exactly right, but the Shia group put them up to this, right? It's not an authentic rebellion of people who want greater rights. That's the first thing, I think, right? And the second thing I think is he wants to kill enough of them that they stop, right? And as crazy as that kind of sounds, we look to Syria.
Yeah.
And Assad is going to be in charge of part of that country probably as long as he's alive. Right? Which seemed just impossible if you looked at the beginning of the Syrian uprising.
Right.
It just seemed impossible. Now, I don't suspect that he will be in charge of all of Syria.
Right.
All right. I think that we are in sort of the mode where partition is likely. But he's going to be the president of something, right?
Yeah.
And so he put the genie kind of back in the bottle just by killing, hundreds of thousands and displacing. I mean, the death total, the displacement total, the injury totals are horrific. But it looks like he's going to be around, right? And so in Yemen, that seems much less complicated to do that.
We had a comment here. So the actual statement was that this is from Prince Mohammed bin Salman, rather. He said that if a woman could ride camels during the life of the prophet, then maybe women can drive cars. And this is actually progress. Like,
It's very
I don't
much
want to
so.
knock. I mean, this is progress in terms of Saudi Arabia.
No, 100% it's progress. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, that constitutes considerable progress. And it's a good lesson that leaders aren't good or bad. Right, they come with a bucket. Some are really bad, but they come with a bucket of things. Right, there are elements of it that they don't always seem consistent to our sort of moral compass.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's really looking at it and not slamming on anything that you've said, but the war he's carrying out in Yemen,
Inexcusable.
There's like nothing he can do in Saudi Arabia to like make up for that.
That is totally true. But we are sitting here in the United States, and we just sold them.
We did, yes, we did.
110. There's 110 billion, something like
Billion,
that. It's
yep.
So I don't know if Max, if you can look
Some
up.
seen amount. Yeah.
110 billion, and I've done very marginal sort of poking around on this. I know that there's a list of weapons that actually that Congress is trying to get taken out. Some Democrats in Congress are trying to ban their sale. Crazy stuff like these detonators that will delay an explosion for up to 24 hours. Right? You say, what use is that in a war? Well, you wait till the women and children come out, and we are selling them these things.
Wow.
Right? And so you're absolutely right. There's nothing he can do with women drivers to put back the limbs on those kids who blew up from the cluster bombs he dropped.
Yeah.
But it's hard to judge sitting here.
As being complicit as we are
our tax
with what's
dollars
happened there.
Built
Yeah.
those weapons.
Yeah. 857-600-0518 if you want to weigh in on the discussion. What are your thoughts on any of the stories that we've covered so far? A couple of other things here that I want to deal with. All right, so a couple of things that are not as highbrow. They're just kind of so the Congressional Black Caucus declined to meet with Donald Trump, and it was a request, a letter from Omarosa Manigault.
From The Apprentice?
From The Apprentice. She wrote the letter on behalf of, because if it's the urban development, it has to have somebody black, right? And if it's the Congressional Black Caucus, then surely the black reporter April Ryan knows how to get up with the CBC. And if it's going to be an invitation to the White House to the CBC, then he should get his black Omarosa to do it for him.
Yeah, don't worry. His lawyer, that terrible lawyer he had, was some stereotypical Jew, and Mnuchin, like the money guy has to be a Jew, and it's a very simple brain this guy's got. I mean, just whatever your group is, you can point to they're
going to be in some stereotypical roles in Trump.
It's like casting a sitcom in 1973.
So Omarosa. She sent the letter on behalf of the White House to invite the CBC, the Congressional Black Caucus. And before I go into the rejection, because the rejection was beautiful in and of itself, but Omarosa signed her letter to the CBC as the Honorable Omarosa Manigault. And
is she an ambassador?
No, she's not an ambassador. She's not, and so she's not. This came from Emily's Post Etiquette, right? So who gets the title of honorable? It's the president, the vice president, senators, congressmen, cabinet members, all federal judges, ministers, ambassadors, and governors. They're the ones who get the title of honorable, not special assistant to the president.
Yeah, I don't. I would have guessed that.
like
I wouldn't have got the whole list, but I would not have put special assistant from a reality TV show 100 years ago.
So
I would not have guessed that.
But here's the thing: like most of us, most human beings, when they get to something like that, they take a pause and say, "Is this the right? Is this proper? Like, am I the honorable? Should I write this?" And then once we ask that question, if you have to ask the question, the answer is probably no. But then too, if you ask the question and you actually go search and you would discover, no, you're not qualified. So the normal human being would go search and realize, okay, you're not qualified to be referred to as the honorable.
Well, she just says, "I'm an honorable person. I'm very judgy, so I'm going to be Judge Matt from here on out." Right? Like this maybe is the logic that she just thinks it's something.
Yeah.
But is she a crazy person? I don't want to throw around the word crazy, but is she a person who is not...
Listen, I'm getting kind of, as much as I try not to use ableist language, some of the shit we see is just so insane, it's hard not to.
Right.
But this was a take from the Washington Post that I think was brilliant. The problem with it is not only that she's not qualified to be referred to as honorable. The other problem is that's a title that's spoken from someone to someone.
Yeah, you don't call yourself.
This is not something you sign. The Washington Post said this is not what you sign a greeting card with. The Honorable Benjamin Dixon. Like, welcome to the Honorable Benjamin Dixon Show. It has to be somebody else on the outside saying, now introducing the Honorable Benjamin Dixon, who is ambassador to Wakanda.
Well, this is again though just this administration does such a wonderful job of deconstructing things.
Everything.
Right? Like if and to a certain extent, sort of the kind of like critical theory professor part of me is like, this is great.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because you just like these are just words. Right, they don't mean anything, right? And the way that they're used in this administration, it's just like they don't mean anything,
right?
So it's like policemen are just guys who wear clothes.
It is great from a political analysis, like a political scientist taking a step back and seeing. Yeah,
I mean, she's this is deconstruction. This is showing the seams. This is making you think. Like, wait a minute. Why do we call ambassadors honorable?
Yeah,
right. They're not also.
But most of us have that process, and we
live in
deconstruct.
Society.
We deconstruct things all the time, and
you don't need to ruin the world to do it.
Exactly,
right? Yeah, no,
exactly.
I can't
You already knew where I was going. So the CBC saw this letter and they were like, "What? The Honorable who?" But they decided not to go, not because she referred to herself as the Honorable, but because they sent communications and they met with President Trump previously, and they gave them a 130-page document saying all the issues that they're dealing with. Here's the data, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And inside of the book were action points that you would only know if you read it, right? Mm-hmm. And so none of the action points had taken place in like the 4 months that they met with Trump. Right. And so they're like, "You got our book, and you obviously didn't even read it because you didn't do anything in the action." So they were like, "So what's the point of meeting with you at this point?" And not only that, you're doing a lot of negative shit to hurt the American community. So they just said, "We're going to decline this meeting."
Seems like the right move. I mean, what could they have accomplished by having that meeting?
Nothing.
Could have asked her why she called herself honorable. Could have shoot out. But no, I can't. I mean, I don't know enough about their work, but I have very little faith that meeting goes anywhere.
Yeah, it wouldn't. It would end up being.
Quotes.
It would be another photo op for Donald Trump, seeing like, I'm the blacks love me,
Look at my black or whatever he said.
What? My African American over there.
America. Oh my God.
Yeah. It's. I have to laugh to not cuss more. Like, doing the best I can, audience. All right. So we talked about the Democratic Party, or we talked about the race in Georgia already. I think the Democrats have a bigger problem than they realize. And, I'll give a full disclosure. I feel like what Donald Trump can do and wants to do is such an anathema to my existence that I would take anybody at this point to buffer and to beat back Donald Trump, at least in the Congress. Like, can we at least divide the House from the Senate, divide the government? So I'm all for, I don't care. I'll take an Ossoff over Karen Handel any day, right?
Absolutely.
No matter what baggage they have, no matter what dark money, I don't care. Donald Trump has to be stopped. I gave all that caveat to say this. The Democrats are in trouble, and I don't think they know what the hell they're doing.
I think they have done nothing lately to show that they have a plan.
I guess I need to tell people why we're even talking about this is because in May, the Democrats had their worst fundraising since 2003. They only raised $4.3 million last month compared to $10 million that was raised by the Republican Party. I'm sorry, if you cannot. This is the thing I was wrong about in the election. I said, if Donald Trump wins, can you imagine the amount of money that the Democrats would raise?
We were all, this was the silver lining we all came up with, right? And there was like that week where the ACLU, drew in this crazy money. And it might still be true that some of these perhaps more progressive causes, that these more issue-based causes maybe are still bringing in money. But part of the assumption, right, was that that Donald Trump, every word he said, would be a fundraising advertisement for the Democrats. Now, do you think there's an extent to which the attention on Ossoff and the incredible money given there detracted from? I just don't know if those are the same people, though. So I don't know.
I don't think it would be the same people, even if there's some crossover. They've been trending negatively on their fundraising for a long time. This race has gotten attention probably for 2 months, 2 solid months. But prior to that, they still had a lot of bad months where they were not able to raise money. And if you can't raise money on Donald Trump, what the hell are you going to do? Because you can't scare people any more than what Donald Trump is already doing. You can't make a scenario like people literally believe that Russians have taken over, and you can't raise more than $4.3 million in May. They actually believe that there's a possibility for a nuclear holocaust with Donald Trump, but the Democratic Party can't raise more than $4.3 million on that
to save humanity. No, you'd think that would be a good pitch. Don't destroy the world, and to be even a little less comical about destroying the world, just the environmental steps he's taken. You would think. Generally, the environment's a good fundraiser. Right. Generally, you would think that would be a good, but literally, so there's like 2 ways in which he is possibly destroying the world, like literally, and they still can't. The only thing that I can say is that it is true that if we go back, if we look at the Republican Party during the last primary run, it looked like they were feckless and didn't know what the heck they were doing. If we looked at Trump during the early stages of his general election campaign, he couldn't raise a dollar, and the stuff all flipped. So things flip. That's true. But I do think that we had the caller way back when saying that the Republicans have a clear message, even if it's sort of evil and awful, and Democrats don't. And maybe, a condition of flipping it, turning it around is saying something coherent that catches on.
Right. And the problem is it does go right back to what the caller said. Like you mentioned, what do the Democrats stand for more so than what they stand against? I think people are upset there's no excuse. I was trying to find a way to give the Democrats an excuse. But like the commenter just said from Facebook, from YouTube, it's not rocket science. You saw what drove fundraising for Bernie Sanders from people, like all the small donations that he got. But yet we're not willing to espouse any of those policies.
I'm tempted to go back to the point that we came up with earlier, or that I came up with and we talked about, that they just simply don't. It's not rocket science, but you do something long enough, right? You have a toolbox that you use over and over and over again. And Bernie just looks like an outlier because all of the conventional wisdom, everything they learned in graduate school, everything they learned in working on campaigns says that is magic. Right? I think that's the attitude about Bernie, right? That it is magic. That there's no, you can't recreate that, right? Whereas the Clinton system you could recreate, right? You find people. I think that's the idea, and I think that that's fundamentally wrong. I think, right? I
know it's 100% wrong because I've worked on a few campaigns. One of the campaigns I worked on had a dynamic candidate in the sense that this dude did more by the time he was 50 than I think 10 people can do in one lifetime. He was like a doctor. He has been in the Air Force. He had done, owned a business. He did all these. He was a lawyer and a doctor. Like, dude, when did you?
How bad did he lose?
He lost. He had like a $3 million budget, and then he lost. And one of the reasons I saw that he lost was sitting inside the campaign as a volunteer and looking and listening and working with them at a different level. Everything about it was talking points that they got from DC.
Yeah,
everything about this local race was talking points, and they did not tap into what this guy had. This guy had the fire in his belly to be the type of community leader that the community wants, right? Yeah. People throw off on populism, but the reality of it is where most of human beings exist, they are looking for that inspirational figure who's going to talk about the issues that are important to them. And when you when you strip that away, I'm trying to not use some horrible language. When you cut that off, from the community, now you're stuck with talking points from a think tank that doesn't even know anything about your community. No. And so there's really no way that you can win or motivate your community when everything that you're talking about comes from a think tank in DC that doesn't understand the issues in that local community. And I think this has spilled over into the Democratic fundraising inability. It's because they're talking about one thing all day long. And overall, people are still looking for a populist leader that they can latch hold to, or at least, if not an individual leader, more importantly, a populist message that can inspire them to want to give and to want to do. But the Democratic Party is like, we got these talking points. It's Russia right now. Let's talk about Russia.
Yeah, and we have our jobs.
Yeah.
And, there are many situations, especially in these hierarchical organizations where, you don't get there by being the best. You don't get to the top by being the most innovative. You get there by following the rules, right? You get there by playing the playbook. If you make a conservative call and it doesn't work, everybody says, I played by the book, right? If you do it and you screw up, you're out.
Yeah.
I think it's just a general
risk adverse in a very significant way. Yeah. But it's a way that's consistently undermining the Democratic Party.
Oh yeah.
It's a way that has consistently given voice, and it goes back to the question about Ossoff and the Georgia 6th district. It's like if you keep you keep playing by your playbook, and your playbook says, let's be as moderate as we can. Let's do triangulation, and let's pick off some of those Republicans. You keep playing that play, but you keep losing, and you keep telling yourself, we lost because we didn't go far enough, or we lost because we weren't moderate enough. And then you keep inadvertently moving further and further to the right, to the point where you've already alienated your base on behalf of people who were never going to be interested in you in the first place.
No, that's the way you put it kind of does outline the absurdity, right? To moderate extremely.
Yeah.
Right. That sounds stupid because it is stupid. Right. Because once you get to once you're at the middle, right, you start moving to the right, and now you're just fishing for you're going to get a subset of the other party's votes.
Right.
Right. You can never win that way.
And the problem is that the Democratic Party does not know it. They know their playbook. I'm not going to say that they don't know their playbook, because obviously they know their playbook.
Oh, they do.
Their playbook just sucks. What they don't know are all the people. Like, I believe, how many people in a congressional district? 800,000 or so people. Yeah. I think last night they had maybe 300,000 total, or I think it was like 100 and 115, whatever the final total was.
Yeah,
I don't
good.
think it was over 300,000 people who turned out. And nobody is going to ask, how do we get those other people?
Yeah.
How are we going to mobilize them? How are we going to motivate them? And the reality of it is a lot of that group would listen to a populist message.
Right, but it's to take that as a broad strategy is to risk the pretty solid state of Democratic power. Right? I mean, you can't have less than 45, 46 senators. It's very difficult given the way. This is a share of power between two parties. Right now, the Republicans have all these advantages, but Democratic Party still has their people that they're going to have lots of senators. They're going to obviously, right? We have a two-party system, and I think what you're suggesting is to make them fundamentally question staying in that lane.
Yeah,
and that if you tell a story in the future of how there used to be this party called the Democratic Party, right? It's plausible it happens because they stay where they are and they keep losing by a little, but that you can last a long time losing by a little. A more plausible story might be they tried something that could have really worked and it didn't work, and they're afraid of that, right? They don't want to go for it if there's risk.
what's riskier than losing again and again?
Yeah,
and again.
For the American people, nothing is riskier.
Right.
For individual people in power, a lot is riskier. If you see what I'm saying.
Definitely. I think I can't remember who it was. But someone tweeted this morning. They said it's almost like the Democratic Party is more interested in making a certain set of consultants rich than they are winning elections.
Yeah, that's very cynical. And I'm not. The only thing I don't like about it is I think a lot of it's not quite subconscious, but it's sort of like common sense built in, which is false. But the outcome's the same. I tend to agree, right?
Yeah.
That there's a class.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us. A couple of things I want to announce. So starting next week, again, I will be on vacation for 2 weeks. You can still check in on the channel to see some of the guest hosts that I have. During that 2-week vacation, I'm going to be doing a nightly podcast for patrons. So if you still want to get access to Benjamin Dixon and the quality work that we do here at the Benjamin Dixon Show, go to patreon.com/the BPD Show. 2 more things that I have to give to you. First is the book that Professor Sinkowitz has written, The Other Air Force. He has a copy of it here with him.
Can I do a little giveaway?
Please do.
Yeah, so we talked about the Middle East, talked about Israel-Palestine. I've written a book not directly on Israeli-Palestinian peace, but this is actually a book about American media intervention into the Middle East. So, for example, I went and I stayed in the West Bank and the Palestinian territories for over a year to research the Ma'an Network. It's a Palestinian TV station funded with American money. I also went to Afghanistan and researched the way in which we fund Afghan filmmakers and TV producers. And I could give away a copy of this to listeners. And I also have this film that I made called Live from Bethlehem about the Ma'an Network. And it's on DVD. You remember DVDs?
I still have a whole bunch of them, actually.
So I could, if it's okay with you, Ben, I would like to give an opportunity for listeners to win copies.
However you want to do it.
All right. So let's say if I'm at Media Studied. I'll put out a tweet about the giveaway. If you retweet it, then I'll give you one chance to win. If you follow me tonight at Media Studied, I'll give you another chance to win. I'll give away 1 book, but I'll give away 10 DVDs.
All right. You guys should just go follow him anyway. Everyone should just go follow him anyway. And this is a perfect time to do it. Last but not least, last night I covered a story about Charlena Lyles. And I covered a story based on the article written on progressivearmy.com. I mentioned one of the authors, Andre Roberge, and I did not mention the second person on the article, Jamie Miller. They did a lot of great work on that piece, and shame on me. The oversight was mine, but I wanted to mention that because we have a fabulous crew at the Progressive Army. We have a fabulous crew that gets it done. Jamie, I'm going to stop right there. I'm not even going to name names, but all of them do important work, and we can't do it without them. So show them some love whenever they do something. Show them some love whenever you read one of their articles. But Jamie, thanks so much for your work, and everyone else at the Progressive Army. And this is your perfect opportunity to go to theprogressivearmy.com, progressivearmy.com, and register for our blog. Our announcer will tell you the rest. Good night.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support the Benjamin Dixon Show. It's Ben Dixon! If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/the BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.